This guy hates impermanence. Could we change his mind? This evening's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit. It begins, why is impermanence so important in Buddhism? And it continues. I understand that everything is theoretically impermanent. Whoops, that's a bit of a challenge. Let's see if we can fix this. Okay. Take two. I understand that everything is theoretically impermanent, but I think that practically a lot of things last a long time, but practicality is a big part of Buddhism. Buddhism says love for another might be impermanent, but people can make it last a lifetime. Well, Buddhism says, so my job is not to treat you the way a school of piranha might treat a capybara that has waded into the wrong Amazonian tributary. But confusion or objection, based on assumption that is erroneous, is like a house of cards in a windstorm. So let's see if we can't cast some light on things. So practicality is a big part of Buddhism, is a generality and not really helpful. Saying Buddhism says love for another might be impermanent, but people can make it last a lifetime. Where does that say that? And which sutra or shastra are you quoting? The same goes for hobbies and even some pleasures in moderation. And if they don't last a lifetime, humans are more than capable of finding happiness in other areas for decades in moderation. Also, disease and pain can last a whole lifetime. So why focus on the impermanence of things, which I recognize as important for some truly transient phenomena, when a lot of things don't fit the impermanent label in human life? Okay, let's approach this with broad brushstrokes, and let's begin with brass tacks. Do you enjoy, he or she who wrote this question, do you enjoy meditation? Do you know the difference between active concentration as well as active analysis versus mindfulness and meditation that are vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random? Do you enjoy practicing the latter two rather than the former two? Do you truly understand the Buddha's teachings? Have you received formal training? If you don't like concentration, and you don't like analysis, and you don't like mindfulness, and you don't like meditation, that's fine. I promise no one's gonna force you to do what you don't want to do. We don't need reasons not to. Just find what makes you happy. But if you really, really want to know why the Buddha taught impermanence, I will happily explain this for you. The annoying answer is, to the question, why train in impermanence? The answer is, it depends who you ask. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, and not in the fun, tingly way. Was found by Lao Tzu, and it was found by the Buddha, that the majority of people stomp and snort around the countryside in a manner that is profoundly rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. But there will always be a minority who instead will be flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. So if you're dealing with someone who is rigid, fearful, superstitious, and controlling, and you ask them why they value impermanence, if they're in a real honest moment, they might tell you that it is only the fear of impermanence and death and karma and inauspicious rebirth that keeps them on the straight and narrow. But if you ask someone who is flexible, loving, rational, and laid back, you'll get an entirely different answer. Consider, if you will, the Four Noble Truths. Ask a biologist. They'll tell you there are stressors. And we are subject to, and the stressors we are subject to are circumstantial, physical, interpersonal, and mental. We perceive the ability to notice these stressors as a survival mechanism. So our problem is not necessarily stinking thinking. In response to a dangerous environment that we find ourselves in, we evolved survival drives to shove and reach and cling. Occasionally, these things can be useful, but when they define us, difficult things happen. You see, the liberation that the Buddha offers us is not liberation from the presence of the capacity to shove or reach or cling. It's liberation from that's a mistake. It's liberation from their tyranny over our choices and utterances and deeds. So this whole thing about shoving, reaching, and clinging, these things can be tyrants in our lives that completely define us, or they can be tools that we use occasionally and skillfully. The more we are defined by the tyranny of shoving, reaching, and clinging, the less fulfilling our life is. Why is that? Ask a neuroscientist. They'll tell you. At the base of our brain, we have two distinct reward systems. The dopamine system rewards for anything, for reproduction and anything that makes reproduction possible. It rewards with sensations of pleasure. We also have an oxytocin-oriented reward system. It rewards for cooperation with the experience of fulfillment. The more we are defined by shoving, reaching, and clinging, the less fulfilling a life we will experience. Remember, according to legend, the Buddha was born a prince, so he didn't have to manifest wealth, power, and prestige. He was marinated in it his whole life. But the son of a warlord, shoving, reaching, and clinging was forever a specter before him. And so he set out on a path to help people be freed from the tyranny of survival instincts run amok. The enlightenment the Buddha offers us is simply being able to practice his Eightfold Path, simply mastering his Eightfold Path. As a child, I had difficulty learning how to tie my shoes, but with great effort and persistent instruction and not a few tears, eventually I learned to tie my shoes to such a degree that I could do so spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Once we do that with anything, that's mastery. We can master tying our shoes. We can master brushing our teeth. We can master riding a bicycle. We can learn to master the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Let's look at Buddha's Eightfold Path, or I should say the final two folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path are mindfulness and meditation, which make the most sense when we view them through the lens of neuroscience. So let's do that right now. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, but not in the fun tingly way. So most meditation instruction is not only frustrating, it can even be destructive. If you have teachers who are trying to convince you to actively concentrate or actively analyze, please understand this: that the only way we can perform those actions is by using specific structures in our brain, such as the medial prefrontal cortex or the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Now, the prefrontal cortex is Jim Dandy. If you want to sort or organize or analyze or calculate, the prefrontal cortex is your boy. But ask a personal trainer, they'll tell you, it doesn't matter how strong your muscle is. If you overtrain it and don't give it enough rest, first, it'll reduce its efficacy, its performance, and second, it will be injured, possibly to the point of disability. How does that apply to concentration and analysis? Overindulgence in those things can cause our amygdala to trigger, as revealed by functional magnetic resonance imaging studies. Our amygdala is the seat of aggression and anxiety. So how ironic it is that concentrating and actively analyzing and then of peace will actually create the opposite of peace. If we ignore those symptoms and persist in abusing our prefrontal cortex, in time we could present with symptoms of depression. But what has this to do with impermanence, mindfulness, and meditation? Glad you asked. As I mentioned a few moments ago, mindfulness is the seventh fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired, thanks to evolution, to access our sympathetic nervous system, which is ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. Our sympathetic nervous system has evolved to help us to perceive in a very specific way, to help us perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Now, there is a dark side to meditation. There is a dark side to mindfulness. We can notice an awful lot. We can notice an overwhelming amount. We can notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. We can notice emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. We can notice so much information, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. How are we to deal with all this influx of information without getting overwhelmed? Remember how I told you a few moments ago that the seventh fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path was meditation? Well, every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within both the lower third and the upper third of that exact same spinal cord. This parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. No one can expect to live 100 years and only perform one inhalation and one exhalation. That would be ludicrous. Instead, we evolved to breathe several rounds every minute of every hour of every day of every year of our life. And as we do so, we cannot help but, as we relax into each exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could at least momentarily, to a certain degree, feel less permanent, feel less solid, feel less defining, feel less alluring, feel less dreadful. It doesn't mean it isn't. It just means it can seem that way, at least momentarily. And that is useful to break the spell, to break the thrall of our survival instincts, the tyranny of which can give us a very unsatisfying life. So here's the wild thing. We don't have to actively contemplate impermanence. In fact, we can try to hide from it like the proverbial ostrich who appears to stick its head in the sand while in all actuality it doesn't. But here's the funny thing. As we sit comfortably in meditation posture for 5 or 10 or 20 or 40 minutes, we vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly, we will notice all sorts of things. We cannot help but notice changes in our visual field. For we might see one thing, we might see another thing. We might hear one thing, that sound might be replaced by another sound. We might feel something on our skin. We might feel something in a joint. We might taste something in our mouth, perhaps the taste of disappointment if it's a long time between meals. We might smell something pleasant, yet fleeting, something permanent, yet fleeting. We cannot help but notice our emotions and how they're here one moment and gone the next. We cannot help but notice that our will, our volition, our intentions are fleeting as well. One moment, someone cuts us off in traffic and we are ready to rain down heaven from above, rain down fire from above. And the next minute, we are cooing over a kitten. Our will fluctuates. Our thoughts come and go. We could be composing a letter to a friend one minute and preparing a shopping list the next minute. Our memories are always changing. Or we're always remembering different things. One minute you're remembering your kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Landstrom. The next minute you are remembering last week's episode of that TV show you like so much. Our imagination is in a constant state of flux. One moment we are gripped in the terror of exploring our greatest political nightmares. The next minute we are imagining our next romantic encounter. Any student of chemistry any student of physics will tell you that change is the only constant, whether it's rapid or slow, whether it's subtle or jarring. We don't have to believe in impermanence. We don't have to focus on impermanence. We don't have to concentrate on impermanence. We don't have to contemplate impermanence. We can't help but notice it. In the most ancient Buddhist scriptures, there is no mention of not self. There is very little mention of stress, but there is a lot of mention of the inevitability of change. Think of it this way. I could wax poetic and say, ever-changing, one and all, there is nothing permanent to grasp. But instead I'll tell you this, that change makes of grasping an absurdity. Change makes of clinging an absurdity. Change makes of reaching an absurdity. Change makes of shoving an absurdity. None of these things have to be believed. As we sit in meditation, we cannot help but notice change as we breathe in. And if you're truly fortunate, we cannot help but relax our grasp of our perception of change as we breathe out. Do this, and you can master the Eightfold Path in a ridiculously short period of time. According to the second to the final passage of the Satipatthana Sutta, it is possible to master the Buddha's Eightfold Path in less than 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. So, our job is not to renounce the world. Our job is not to become a curmudgeon. Our job is not to become Oscar the Grouch. Our job is not to say, this sucks, it's only impermanent. That sucks, it's only impermanent. I love my niece, but she'll die someday, or I'll die someday. I love this cat, but in 20 years it'll be gone. It is super important to remember that the fourth enlightenment factor is joy. The fifth enlightenment factor is tranquility. If our rigidity, if our rigid obsession of impermanence is robbing us of peace and robbing us of joy, then to quote Bugs Bunny, I think I've took a wrong turn at Albuquerque. So what I'd like to do is to now practice with you and chant with you together as a team after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. So what I'd like to do is return to the latest iteration of Tang Tong Gyalpo's all-pervading benefit of beings, the recitation and meditation of the Great Compassionate One, who is not an entity to be worshipped or supplicated, simply an archetype. This has been translated from the Tibetan by Bokhar Rinpoche and translated from the French. Let me rephrase it. Translated from the Tibetan into French by Bokhar Rinpoche, translated from the French into the English by Christian Boucher, adapted and amplified by this MOOC. So let us exercise the neural pathways responsible for empathy and enthusiasm. May we liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May we liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May we liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. And now let's play with the exercise we already learned during class. Let us silently, mentally, and as we silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun during our inhalation, we can kick back and watch the antics of our mind as it perceives, emotes, intends, reasons, recalls, and imagines. As we silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, we can relax into mind's non-graspable nature. We can invite our real or imagined subtle energy to coalesce at the crown of our head as we chant. Above myself and all beings of the universe appears a white lotus and moon disk. All in the syllable tree from which appears the noble Jinrazik, his clear and white body amidst five-colored rays. He smiles and looks upon us with compassion. His four hands the inner two all joined. The outer to the right holds a crystal mala, the left a white lotus. Four hands remind us of love, compassion, sympathetic joy, and loving everybody with equanimity, friends, enemies, and strangers alike. Garments and jewels adorn the magic skin of like of his shoulder. What are the 5 garments of a Buddha, and what do they remind us of? The 5 garments of skirt, belt, shawl, scarf, and crown tie remind us that when we allow ourselves to notice during our inhalation and release during our exhalation, then spontaneously hate is transformed into mirror-like wisdom. Greed is transformed into discerning wisdom. Befuddlement is transformed into pervasive wisdom. Jealousy is transformed into all-accomplishing wisdom. And pride is transformed into equalizing wisdom. Persisting in our practice of awareness and release effortlessly cultivates the 6 perfections, which are reminded of by the 6 ornaments. The 6 ornaments of being anklets, triple necklace, bracelets, armlets, earrings, and crown. They remind us of the 6 perfections of generosity, nonviolence, patience, the effortless effort of enthusiasm, or the effortless effort, mindfulness, and meditation. The antelope of the deerskin of light covering his shoulder reminds us that practicing, blending the recitation of the 6-syllable mantra with the practice of awareness and release helps us to effortlessly perfect the energetic yogas. To his back an immaculate moon disk, he embodies the essence of all objects of Buddhist refuge. So we do not think of Chenrezig as an entity to be worshipped or supplicated, but as an archetype reminding us to bring the four bases of mindfulness, the circumstantial, the physical, the interpersonal, and the mental, into the two paths of love and letting go. He sits in the Vajra posture, the Buddha of limitless light crowns his head. The Vajra posture of Buddhism, also known as the full lotus posture of Hinduism, reminds us of the importance of the conventional and the ultimate, that which we experience when breathing in and that which we experience when breathing out. Therefore, allowing things to be appearing yet non-graspable, sensual yet non-graspable, allowing our experience of the interpersonal to be resounding yet non-graspable, allowing our experience of the mind to be lucid yet non-graspable. The idea of the Buddha of limitless light setting upon our head, and if I was doing a good job of this, capital IF, what I would do is change the font and make it pretty. So, if the Buddha of limitless light crowning our head, it is a very shorthand for training in channels, winds, and drops simply by using verbiage. And it is thought to be an easy way to transcend turbulent emotions, to let go of them. There are many times in our life we will experience turbulent emotions. One of the most, we are wired to fear change. That fear is a survival mechanism to heighten our sense, our perceptions, and our reaction time. There are many things in times in our life we will feel scared, including the ending of our life. To end our life with a modicum of peace and acceptance is a superior way to experience the inevitability of death. Having sat for the better part of 20 minutes, a bit of the old calisthenics could be refreshing. So if you wish, you may join me in performing Tibetan-style Buddha bowing. One moment, if you please. Now, I'm going to knock some out right now. Let me check something real quick, make sure everything's on the screen, and then, let's see here. Let's see if that fits on the screen better. It does. Fabulous. Okay. So if you want, you can join me in these light calisthenics, but you don't have to. I promise not to stand at your door and scold you. More button color on standby fonts. Oopsie, I forgot my hair tie. More button color on standby fonts. Perfect Buddha adorning your head. Look upon all things with eyes of compassion. Chin right seek. We bow to you. More button color on standby fonts. Perfect Buddha adorning your head. Look upon all beings with eyes of compassion. Chin right seek. We bow to you. More button color on standby fonts. Perfect Buddha adorning your head. You look upon all beings with eyes of compassion. Shinrei seek. We bow to you. More button color on standby fonts. A perfect Buddha adorning your head crown. You look upon all beings with eyes of compassion. Shinrei seek. We bow to you. Lord button color on standby fonts. A perfect Buddha adorning your crown. Look at all things with eyes of compassion. Shinrei seek. We bow to you. Lord button color and standby fonts. A perfect Buddha adorning your crown. Look upon all beings with eyes of compassion. Shinrei seek. We bow to you. Lord button color and standby fonts. A perfect Buddha adorning your crown. We look upon all beings with eyes of compassion. Shinrei seek. We bow to you. Lord button color and standby fonts. A perfect Buddha adorning your crown. We look upon all beings with eyes of compassion. Shinrei seek. We bow to you. And now let us rest the mind. After resounding with enthusiasm, it is as if the body of the noble Chenrezig emits light. The light dissipates our experiences. Let's try this again. The light dissipates our experiences of. I don't think that falls trippingly off the tongue. So let's move that over here. The light dissipates her experiences of jealousies, karmic impure appearances, and pride's misunderstanding. May the outer world become as safe as the real or imagined pure land of bliss. May the outer world become as safely fortunate as the real or imagined pure land of bliss. With each inhalation, may the body, speech, and mind of beings become as healthy, loving, and wise as the body, speech, and mind of the archetype of enlightened compassion, Lord Chenrezig. Alright, take it from the top. With each inhalation, may the body, speech, and mind of beings become as healthy, loving, and wise as the body, speech, and mind of the archetype of enlightened compassion, Lord Chenrezig. With each exhalation, may appearances, sensations, sounds, and cognitions feel as non-graspable as if they were one in their empty nature. I do appreciate your patience with my ridiculous editing. One moment, if you please. Alright, so let's review the mantra's meaning. I invoke the wish of healing money jewel that serves as a metaphor of love, and the payme lotus of purity serving as a metaphor of release. With whom I supplicate, may love and release be mastered by all. Un momento, por favor. All right, let us bring the experience of the 4 bases of mindfulness into the conventional path of love and release, where it is love that is emphasized. Please chant with me. May all minds of all beings know be as peacefully enlightened as the mind of a real or imagined Buddha symbolized by a clear one syllable seed or bija mantra. So we're going to take all these words and condense them down into just 6 syllables that we're going to divide between our inhalation and our exhalation. Now that we're comfortable with these 6 syllables, we're going to recite them silently and mentally during our inhalation. During our exhalation, we're going to physically relax as best we can, while striving to chant this 6-syllable mantra 8 times per breath. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Together. May all relationships, all speech of all beings know be as joyfully loving as a real or imagined Buddha's communication symbolized by the 6-syllable mantra. Oops, I think I made a boo-boo. This should have been italicized. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. May all bodies or forms of all beings now enjoy the beautiful health seen in Buddha statuary, depicting the blissful body of a real or imagined Yodam archetype of enlightenment such as Chenrezig. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. May all circumstances or lots of all beings know have the good fortune or boon, as a Buddha's real or imagined paradise, pure land or Vanti. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. While meditating upon the meaning of this, recite the mantra as much as you can. One moment, if you please. Let us view letting go through a philosophical lens as we bring the illusion of the horizontal duality of us and them into the dance of impermanence and interdependence known as Madhyamaka's yoga of inconceivability. All visible circumstances or lots could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this body or form. Oh, well. Oh, money me me yung, 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 oh, money me me yung. Oh, well. Oh, wait, here's an idea. That just about broke my brain. All sensual bodies or forms could be as impermanent and interdependent as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this communication or speech. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. All resounding interpersonal speech could be as impermanent and interdependent as if it could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this awareness or mind. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. All lucid minds could be as impermanent and interdependent as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into a vast empty void. Like the illusion of the infinite astral sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although tantalizing to the eye, could be not graspable to the hand. Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. At the end, without conceptualizing the three spheres of actor, action, and recipient, rest evenly in your own nature. Let us, as we silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, We can kick back and watch the antics of mind as it perceives, emotes, intends, reasons, recalls, and imagines. As we silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, we can relax into mind's non-graspable nature. May my body and others' bodies be as healthy as the body of Chinrazik. May all sounds be as loving as the six-syllable melody. And may all mental activity be as wise and free as the domain of great wisdom. One moment, if you please. All right, together. May all mental activity be as wise and free as the domain of great wisdom, and may all sounds be as loving as a six-syllable melody. By the virtue of this practice may I quickly master Chenrezig's enlightenment. Then establish in this state the totality of beings. By the merit of this meditation and recitation may I and those related to me through intention, as soon as we die, but miraculously born in Sukhavati, pure land of bliss. Immediately traverse the 10 Bodhisattva bhumis. And through emanations benefit all beings in the 10 directions. In the off chance that you feel I've earned it, you can give this live stream a thumbs up. You can even help support this channel. In approximately 10 1/4 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.